Yes, hello everyone. Fáilte Rashkity on Cluiche. Welcome back to another weekend review show here on Cluiche with me, Séamus, Brady, your host. And for this one, I am joined by Aaron Prendergast from the Gaelic Games Fan TV. Aaron, what a weekend. I mean, hurling action, Gaelic football action, Camogie, LGFA across the board. Major results across all four, but especially the two Munster hurling games. I mean, we're going to dive in with them at the start. Just endless headlines. What a weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was brilliant. Good to be back on the channel again. Yeah, I felt like the weekend, the championship really came alive. With games in both football and hurling. Like the game last night was just like incredible. I didn't want to watch it back, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Was just had absolutely everything. It was box office. If there's ever been a game. The football games today were probably a little bit disappointing, but look, both hurling games were cracking, as it always is. I mean, both games finishing in a draw, it's probably not that big of a surprise. There's so little between a lot of the teams. And I think there's an argument as well. This is the most competitive the Munster Hurling Championship has ever been. Like, I don't think there's a bad team in there. I mean, usually there isn't a bad team. But it just feels like it's wide open. And it feels like anyone could beat anyone. And you saw that kind of today, like with both Clare and Cork and obviously with Limerick Tip as well. So yeah, like some cracking games. Leinster Hurling Championship was brilliant as well. Some big talking points, yeah.
Certainly. Well, if you're new to the show, guys, the ticket down the bottom there will tell you how it works on the channel. Throw in any thoughts that you have in the live chat, any personal highlights of the weekend or questions or anything like that, and we will respond to all of them. We have plenty of examples in here. Love to see it, guys, from Brian O'Riordan, from Liam White, from Jack Nulty, and from Garrett O'Grecon, throwing in their thoughts from the weekend's action. Brian here says, and breathe, how's your heart after an absolutely remarkable and extraordinary start to the Munster hurling campaign? Everything we love about hurling was on show, from skill, passion, commitment, aggression, loads of fight, and even some spike flare-up, certainly. And then Liam says here, hurling, you just can't beat it. The comments, lads, that are specific to games, I will open them, because there are comments about the Kerry Cork game. There's comments about the Clare Cork game. I'll open them up as we go further into the show. But if you're new, welcome to the show. Hit the subscribe button, everything like that, and join our team. We're live every week here on the channel. So starting off, Aaron, with what everybody was looking forward to, the repeat of last year's All-Ireland hurling final. It took place at a packed-out Cusack Park in Ennis. Well, is it fair to call it the Battle of Ennis? I mean, every 2 minutes in this game, there was some sort of fight going on. It was a pure, like it was a proper game, wasn't it? It felt like a Battle of Champions from just in general as well. The way that we saw it being such a game of two halves, the way the Cork were so on top for one period and then Clare were so on top for another period. And like, this is the type of game where we kind of saw the best of both sides. We saw how good Cork were in that first half. The 2 goals from Brian Hayes had them firmly in the driving seat at halftime. And then we saw how good Clare are again. We were reminded why they're All-Ireland champions. They roared back into the contest. Peter Duggan's goal was just spectacular. Tony Kelly's equaliser. Like, just, it had everything. And Clare will probably feel like they probably should have kicked on and won it there when they had all the momentum there at the end. But at the same time, Cork will be kicking themselves that they were in such a good position at halftime and didn't close it out in the second half. So a draw, probably a fair result, but at the same time, neither of them will be happy with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it was it was a game that felt like championship. You know, like watching Galway Kilkenny yesterday, there was a flatness about it. It was like, it just didn't really feel like a championship game. It felt more like a league game. But watching this straight from, you know, the first ball thrown in, like everything was contested. It was a cracking game, and Cork in the first half were by far the better side. I mean, they cut through Clare like a warm knife through butter. I mean, the goal from Brian Hayes was outstanding, both of the goals. And Clare just didn't look up for it at all. It was kind of bizarre. Like, I know they had a poor league, but it was just so easy for Cork. But some of the hurling they were playing was phenomenal. I mean, that point as well, I think from Alan Connolly, like over his shoulder, like way out nearby the sideline was incredible. And yeah, Clare just struggled to deal with the pace of the game. And you were thinking like 11 points at half time, like it's going to take something monumental for Clare to come back into it. But they did, fair play. Like, they came roaring out of traps. They get 2 quick goals. David Reedy obviously getting one of them. Great finish from him. And yeah, like, it's all of a sudden it's game on, and Shane Barrett gets sent off, I think rightly so. And to be fair, like Cork actually, in the period after the red card, I actually thought they did all right. Like in the next 10 minutes, it wasn't like Clare kind of put a huge amount of pressure back. Like Cork were still able to kind of put 7, 8, 9 points and kind of have a comfortable lead. But then, yeah, like once that goal goes in from Peter Duggan, it was just absolute carnage. And like with the atmosphere and everything else, like Cork they couldn't get their hands on the ball at all. And Clare should have won it. The game was there. The game was there in the end. And look, in the end, I mean, if you had offered them a draw at halftime, they absolutely would have took it. And if you had offered Cork a draw after Clare scored that late point, they probably would have took it as well. But I think at the same time, it probably shows that Cork maybe aren't as far ahead as people think. There is still a vulnerability about Cork. And we have seen these type of games and moments with Cork over the last couple of years where when the pressure gets really, really tough, they can crack. And they should have won that game. Like they should have kicked on and won it. Their discipline let them down as well. Like way too many silly frees. But yeah, like fair play to Clare, and anyone who thought that Clare was gonna wilt away and have a poor championship, I think they stood up and answered that question.
They certainly did. But then you're looking as well at the other game between Tip and Limerick and the draw between both of those sides. I mean, it's going to be extremely difficult to call who is going to actually get out of the Munster Championship this year. Jer has a really good question, Aaron. I'll put this to you. He says, have Clare earned their respect as All-Ireland champions with how well they played in the second half?
Well, absolutely. Like, and I know they were missing Shane O'Donnell. Like, and yes, they had a poor league, but like the teams have poor leagues all the time. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't really read too much into the league. There was always going to be a question around Clare, just given the fact that, you know, when it comes to defending All Irelands, they haven't often had great years, you know, following on from when they've won All Irelands in the past. And there was that kind of feeling of, well, there's probably going to be some sort of a hangover here. And Cork were obviously coming in with a huge amount of momentum as well. But no, Clare, absolutely. They earned the respect if it hadn't been there already. And they turned up and looked, to be fair, like David Brady was outstanding. Stood up brilliantly in the absence of Shane O'Donnell. Hayden McCarthy was very good as well. And yeah, for Clare, considering how poor they were in the first half, they can take a lot of positives now going into the next game. And look, it's still going to be very tough to get out of Munster because Tipperary are there, Limerick are there, Cork are there. But they'll take a lot of positives from that performance, definitely.
Yeah, no, they certainly will. I think, look, when you look at we've even more good comments in from Jerry, says Cork's bench have failed to impact in the league final and today in Ennis. Is the strength in depth in brackets of Cork overrated? Personally, I think Kingston usually makes a big impact, but he was fairly quiet today now when he came off the bench. Look, that's just some days like that's going to happen. Declan Dalton as well. But I think you have to look at it from this perspective that Decky Dalton and Shane Kingston both came into a Cork team that had just had a man sent off. And that means that your role is going to be different. You're not actually going to get the same one-on-one that you're going to get if you're 15 on 15. Now it's okay, lads, we've one man less. We're going to have to work extra hard on the defence and everything like that. And we're more kind of on the back foot than we would be. Bernie McCormick here says the ref was a disaster, one-sided, left a lot go when it came to pulling and dragging. Bernie, just out of interest, I would be very interested to know which side you're actually saying that for, because the one thing I was thinking when I was watching the game, just on the topic of referees, was, my God, I would hate to be the referee, because there was so much going on. Every time that the ball was down one end of the field, there was a brawl going on down the other end. Like, it was just constant off the ball, shoving, pushing, shit talk, just never ending, jostling with the hurl, everything. And you can pick out a million different incidents. I've no doubt that Cork players probably did stuff that deserved more than a yellow card off the ball, and Clare players probably did stuff that deserved more than a yellow card off the ball. And both fans are going to highlight what the other team did. Me personally, if I was a ref, I'd probably just throw in the towel, go get a job at the post office this year or something, because it is going to be very, very difficult to get all the calls right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I thought like there was probably a few soft threes, but I think it went both ways. Do you know what I mean? Like, you could argue the free that Cork got at the end was a little bit soft. You know, you could argue the certain frees that Clare got were a little bit soft. And But yeah, I thought overall the ref had a good game. You know, like I thought a lot of the fouls were frees. Look, ultimately, I know like maybe there was an argument that, like, and I saw Dan Casey kind of tweeted to me saying a lot of the players were kind of jumping around and kind of making a meal out of it. But I think that's just probably the nature of how it is now. Do you know what I mean? But I think a lot of them were fouls, in fairness. And you know that was just it. But I thought, to be fair, given, as you said, the complexity of the game, how intense it was, and given that it has been a weekend where there have been some questionable refereeing decisions, maybe in football as opposed to hurling, but I thought the referee had a fairly decent game, to be honest.
Yeah. All things considered, I think the ref did well. Coleman here says lots of off the ball quote incidents all over the pitch that led to a dogfight. Is that a Clare tactic? I wouldn't necessarily say it's a Clare tactic. I'd say that they don't back down. I'd say that they definitely do get stuck in. I think that they would have known that Cork stepped all over them in the league game. Yeah, put 6 goals past them. I think Lohan would have been punching the wall in the dressing room, being like, that is not happening today. Make sure that those Cork lads who are coming in off the back of a league win, make sure that they know that they're not here for a walkover today and that we are going to absolutely put it up to them. Brian here as well says Alan Connolly perhaps was lucky to stay on the pitch. Thought Shane Barrett was harshly sent off though. And then given how impressive Cork have been up to this point, there will be questions asked of them given how they seem to collapse after Shane Barrett's sent off. And Clare will take a lot of positives, 12 points behind at halftime and 8 points with 7 minutes left, and came thundering back and showed great resilience and determination. And Jer here says, last one on it, he says, anyone get the feeling Clare and Cork will meet again? It seems to be like this type of rivalry is just coming. It's like that familiarity breeds contempt, that saying that the two of them have seen so much of each other now over the last 2 years. And like, I just want to say this about the Clare Cork game. A lot of people are kind of jumping on it. I've seen it online. A lot of people are saying, oh, Cork aren't all that, da-da-da. They still went away to the All-Ireland champions and drew and probably should have won. Like, don't get me wrong, they weren't that great in the second half. Clare took control, but Clare are the All-Ireland champions. Cork had a man sent off, and Cork still managed to get a draw out of it when they were trailing with seconds left. Like, they're not all of a sudden a bad wash team overnight. Like, I think people probably went a little bit too far saying that the All-Ireland's already won, but people are definitely going too far right now saying that they're not all that. They are still one of the best teams in the country. They are still one of the front runners for the All-Ireland, without doubt. And seeing how unpredictable this Munster Championship is, if Cork get out of the Munster Championship, which I imagine they will, you have to put them as one of the front runners for the All-Ireland. It was such a game of two halves. Cork were so dominant in the first half. That's the other thing. They showed how good they could be. Brian Hayes' 2 goals had them in such a dominant position at halftime. But Clare showed incredible fight back. Reminded us all why they're the All-Ireland champions. David Reedy's goal was brilliant. Peter Duggan's goal was absolutely amazing. Tony Kelly's equaliser was sensational. And they probably would be kicking themselves that they didn't finish it out when they were a point ahead going down the home stretch. Realistically, we were talking there, all of the incidents that were going on off the ball, it really felt like a statement from both teams that they were not going to be bullied. They were not going to let the other team push them around. They are so evenly matched. If somebody is to be happier with the draw, who would you say it is?
I would say Clare, just given the fact that they were 11 points down, like at halftime. Cork were, and you just felt like it was going to continue. And honestly, I was nearly thinking Cork could win this by 15, 16, maybe even 20 plus the way the game was going. You knew there was going to be a fight back from Clare and everything else. And look, obviously the red card, having that extra man made a difference. But I think Clare will be happier of the two. I still think they'd be disappointed they didn't, see out that final puck out and win the game. But ultimately, as I said, like at halftime, they absolutely would have took a draw. And as well as that, it takes that extra. It gives them a point, but it takes a point away from Cork as well. And as we've saw with the Munster Championship down the years, you don't know how important that draw could be. That could be the difference between third or fourth. It could be the difference, between third or second. So. And given the fact that Limerick and Tip was a draw as well, like it means they're all still on the same, they're all still on a point, so no one's really lost any ground. So, whereas if Clare had have lost, they would have been sitting bottom 2 points, adrift of Cork and having to go to the Gaelic grounds as well. The pressure would have been on. So, I think Clare will be the happier of the two.
Let's be honest, the real winner this weekend was Waterford. Nobody gets out in front of the Munster Championship. They're all on the same level. Waterford had the week off, and now if Waterford manage to get a win next week, they're ahead of at least 3 of the teams, which is crazy. So Liam says here as well, it felt like deja vu from the league game in the first 35, but my God, Clare showed terrific heart and skill in the second half. Absolute cinema. Jerry here says, from Clare, the main hope would be Dermot Ryan's injury not being bad, getting Shane O'Donnell and Cleary back. Brian O'Riordan says, it's sending off at a major impact for Cork. They dominated the first half and Clare proved what brilliant All-Ireland champions they are. I thought Liam Gordon explained all the decisions very clear and communicated his reasons for the decisions. Liam Mac-01 here says, Owen Downey wasn't up to the physicality of Peter Duggan. I don't think many people in the world will be up to the physicality of Peter Duggan. The fella is an absolute tank. I went to the puck fodder and he standing beside him at one point. He is a big human being. I just wouldn't like to be going up for a high ball against him. We'll move then to the other game that took place in the Munster Championship. Tipperary 223, Limerick 223 in Semple Stadium. The Premier have held the treaty to a draw in Semple Stadium. Probably a result that many people wouldn't have expected. Tipperary had a very flat league final. They're coming in against Limerick, who are fresh off the back of last season where they lost their All-Ireland crown. A lot of people would be looking at them to be kind of roaring into the championship, ready to take their throne back, and Tipperary draw with them at Semple Stadium. What do you make of this one?
Yeah, like it was a lot more even, I think, than people expected, and it was even throughout the game. Like I was watching the Galway Roscommon game at the same time, so it was kind of double screen. So I missed certain parts of the game, but from what I saw, it was very, very even. And anyone could have potentially won it. Like it wasn't like any team pulled away like with Cork Clare. And yeah, fair play to Tipperary. You know, after the question marks of last season and the Munster Championship, you know, and obviously, as you said, the performance in the league final was very, very poor. You know, some new faces obviously in the team, and Darren McCarthy, who was outstanding, scored a big free towards the end of the game as well to level it up. And there were some big performers. Owen Connolly was very good as well with 4 points on the day. And Limerick as well showed that mettle as well and that resolve that we've seen from Limerick down the years, that when it looked like Tipperary were going to pull away, Limerick would respond. And to be fair, Shane O'Brien was outstanding, 1-4. Big goal, obviously, from him as well. And Adam English getting 1-2 as well. So some new faces kind of in the Limerick side, like in the kind of Limerick starting forward line. And to be fair to Adam English, he took his goal really well as well after the ball was played through. So, yeah, I think Limerick will be the side that will be more disappointed. They didn't see it out, especially when it was looking like they were gonna win it. They had one ruled out through Hawkeye as well, rightly so. And those 2 points there would have been huge, you know, kind of leading them on towards a potential Munster final. But yeah, fair play to Tip as well, because they really stood up. And, you know, last year they were, you know, probably the whipping boys of Munster. I think this year they're absolutely not going to be that. And, you know, it makes it so exciting, as you said. Like, if you're going to sit here now and call who gets to the Munster final, I think you could make a case for any of the 5 of them, to be honest with you. Maybe Waterford might be the team you'd look at, you know, as probably the outsiders. But between the other 4, like, I think you can make a case for anyone.
Yeah, certainly. Interesting enough, we've 2 people that agree with you and one person who doesn't. First of all, Liam says a draw was fair, but Limerick quite literally threw that game as well as pucking some incredible wides. Garrett O'Donoghue says, even though the game was fairly even throughout, I think it's easier to say Limerick would be happier with the draw in this game and Tipperary were the better team. So very, very different opinions on who should have come out with the result. But for Tipperary in general, for Liam Cahill, this is a really important result, even though they didn't get the win, because a lot of people were already, even during the league, they were already throwing here we go, this is going to be a classic Liam Cahill season. Tip look good now, therefore they'll be bad in the championship. To get a draw against an outstanding Limerick team is a good start to the championship. Look, you can make your arguments that they should have got over the line. You can make your arguments that Limerick should have got over the line. But the reality is, Tip haven't lost. And when you look at last year, how bad they were, to draw against a top quality side like Limerick is a good start. I'm not trying to make it out like it's a moral victory, but it is a good start. And it's way better than it was last season. And I agree with you. I put them right in there in the mix to make it to a Munster final and to make it out of the Munster Championship. Right now, my pick is Cork and Limerick to make the final, Clare to finish 3rd, Tip to finish 4th, Waterford to finish 5th. That's what I've gone with. I'm still not changed on it, but we'll see what happens. Brian says, Séamus, I'm sorry I doubted you about Clare. It's okay, Brian, don't worry. Brian also says, given how poor Tip were in the league, this is a big performance from that. This was a big result for Tip against a brilliant Limerick. It's a very encouraging start. For Limerick, where do you think their heads would be at after this?
Yeah, like I think that like it's interesting because like a part of me nearly feels like a year ago Limerick would have won that game, but at the same time I've seen Limerick draw with Tipperary as well. Like I think they drew with them maybe 2 years ago. The year they won the All Ireland, their last All Ireland win in Munster. So we have seen this before. And considering like there is a few kind of big players probably missing for Limerick, Nicky Quaid obviously back fresh off of an injury, which is incredible in itself. But you could probably tell in different moments he's not at full tilt. So with more games, hopefully he does come back to full tilt. So look, I think in the end Limerick will be disappointed, but it's away from home in Semple Stadium. Whatever you say about Tipperary and Liam Cahill, they always have given Limerick problems in the past. If they haven't beaten them in quite a while. So look, Limerick will take it. And look, they still have 2 games to go in the Gaelic rounds as well, which will be huge for them.
Certainly. I think, look, for Limerick, the positives is Shane O'Brien, Adam English, were the two that provided the goals. That next generation for Limerick is ready to take the mantle and take more of the weight off the Aaron Gallans, the Seamus Flanagans, the Garrod Hegartys, etc. They have serious strength and depth. And for Tip, you can say the exact same thing. Darren McCarthy, outstanding. Jake Morris, 4 points. Like, they're all part of that generation. Dara Stakelum, Sam O'Farrell. But John McGrath, part of the elder statesmen, you could say, in the team, with 2 goals and a point. He was outstanding. Both goals were brilliant finishes. For Tip, there's a lot of positives there as well. A lot of positives going into the next round. I think, look, when you're looking at Limerick this season, the team that they're always compared to is that Kilkenny team of the late 2000s under Brian Cody that did the 4 in a row, because Limerick did their own 4 in a row. And I was one of the people who would have always said, look, if you look at the championship structure and you look at the Munster Championship that this Limerick team has had to come out of versus the Leinster Championship back then that Kilkenny team had to come out of, the Munster Championship that Limerick had to deal with was incredibly more difficult for Limerick to get out of than the Leinster was for Kilkenny at the time. Because remember, Galway only joined in 2009 and Wexford, Dublin, Offaly were all probably worse than they are now, to be honest. So it was much harder for Limerick. But once Kilkenny lost their crown in 2010, what did they do the next 2 years? They came back, they won back-to-back All-Irelands. And they remained a consistent All-Ireland winner, because when they lost it in 2013, they came back, they won it in 2014, 2015. They left no doubt at all that they were the best team of that era. Not just one era, but 2 eras. So for Limerick, the question is now, can you come back and do it again? You did your 4 in a row. You had the crown taken off you. Can you come back and win it one more time? We saw it with the Dublin footballers, did the 6 in a row, finally knocked off the pedestal in 2021 and 2022, come back and win it in 2023. Prove you're the best again. And for Limerick, I think that's one major test that they have ahead of them, and I can't wait to see them track it down. But yeah, that's Munster wrapped up in the Munster hurling. We have a few comments in here. Liam Mack01 says, no, McGrath made some difference when he came on. He certainly did. He's another vintage hurler that just seems to not age at all.
John McGrath as well was brilliant.
John McGrath, yeah, just unbelievable stuff. Brian says, positives for Limerick. They got a draw in Thurles. O'Brien and English were brilliant. We're going to move then over to Leinster, and this was a superb game. Dublin 125, Offaly 219 in Parnell Park. Look, me and you had been saying it from the start about Offaly when they got promoted. Offaly are here to stay in the Leinster Championship. Even though they leave Parnell Park without anything on the points in terms of the league, by God, they've proven that they are not here to just make up the numbers. They're here to stay. Yeah,
absolutely. And like, obviously the game wasn't on TV. I wasn't at it, so I didn't get to see any of it, unfortunately. But you were keeping an eye on Score BO and reading reports and everything else. And it looked like Offaly had Dublin, to be honest with you. It looked like they had us. And like, even looking on Score BO as well, like we scored 1-4 in the final, from the 68th minute onwards. So absolutely we got out of jail. And to be fair, like if I was to take a guess, at probably how Dublin got over the line, it's probably just goes down to experience. Dublin have been in these games, more so than this Offaly team have been in them. But look, Offaly will learn. They've a young team, young players. They can take a lot of positives from going to Parnell Park and putting in a performance like that. And I think they're going to stay up in this division, in my opinion, in the Leinster Hurling Championship. And I think with more of these games, with more exposure to these type of matches, they'll learn and they'll get better. So although there'll be disappointment over losing the game and sort of having a lead towards the end and sort of letting it slip towards the end, they will take positives from it. But for Dublin, I think it's just relief, to be honest with you, because if we had lost this game, then we're not getting out of Leinster. Do you know what I mean? Absolutely. Yeah. That's it, done and dusted. So the fact that Dublin have won this game gives themselves a chance. And yeah, like it's hard to kind of know where Dublin are at. We have good records against Galway and Wexford, so that's given me a bit of hope. But I suppose at the same time, it is also a credit to how good Offaly are as well.
Yeah, no, they certainly are. A good pal Liam from Offaly here, he says, "Can't say I like you for this result." Certainly, it was an outstanding game of hurling, and the banter has begun, ladies and gentlemen. Stockton Tim says, "Up the banner, was Cork's tenure as All-Ireland champs the shortest lived ever?" Garrett Odo Greco here, he says, "Ronan Hayes, when he came on, was more like Kilmacud Ronan Hayes that he hasn't brought to the Dublin team the last few years." That game, I keep going back to it, that game that Ronan Hayes played for Kilmacud against Na Fianna, do you remember the Dublin County final?
He scored a hat-trick, I think, didn't he?
Yeah. He scored a hat-trick, and he literally looked like prime Séamus Callanan. I remember thinking, I can't wait to get this guy into the Dublin team and see what he can do. And to be fair, we were hitting terrible ball into him, like really, really bad ball into him, and hoping that he'd turn water into wine, which he didn't. But he's a type of player that he can just be a difference maker for Dublin if he's on his game.
Yeah, absolutely. And it has been weird over the last couple of years because he has played, but he just hasn't really been able to. And a few times, maybe the performance levels haven't been there, but also as well, probably not utilizing him in the best kind of way. And maybe there's other players that were kind of more so looking towards. But he is a top player. Like, he's brilliant at winning sort of the ball coming in, feeding off the scraps as well. And as we've seen it, he gets a goal right at the end. How many, a bit like in the Kilmacud Crokes final there a few years ago as well. So he's been there multiple times and done it. And to be fair, he pops up with a huge goal there for Dublin, which came as a lifeline, really, because without that goal, we wouldn't have won.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, you pushed that close, but even though we were pushed that close and it went to the wire like that, and by the way, big shout out to Dublin GA's Instagram page. Did you see the reel around on Hayes' goal? Fantastic content. Whoever snapped that and put it up, fair play, because that was a superb bit of content with the music behind it. It was pretty sick. For Dublin, I'm actually looking at it as more of a positive because I'm fully aware of how good Offaly are. Like, this isn't, John McDonagh champions, when the John McDonagh Cup was initially launched. And I'm not being disrespectful to the teams, that came up and the work rate that they put in and everything like that. But at the time, the John McDonagh Cup was very much whoever got relegated from Leinster came straight back up. Like, Laois would go down, come back up. Westmeath would go down, come back up. Now it's like the competition itself is getting better and better and better, and the standard is getting better and better and better. And I have to say, you look at Carlow coming up last year, taking Kilkenny to a draw. Offaly coming up this year, probably should have beaten us in Parnell Park. The standard is just getting better and better, and hurling should back this. You got Willie Marr coming in. Look at that. That's the way to go.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, going up against Galway next, that'd be a huge test for them. In fairness, but yeah, no, absolutely. Especially with the young lads coming through, Adam Screeney still to come back in at some stage as well. So yeah, Offaly fans can be very positive, and although this defeat will be a difficult one to take, at the same time, you're a team that's at the start of your journey. Whereas Dublin have been here multiple times, you know what I mean, and played in these type of games against your Antrim, your Laoises, these type of matches, and found ways to kind of just dig it out and win it. Whereas this is the first of a kind for Offaly. So, there's probably I'd actually nearly be more positive as an Offaly fan than I would be as a Dublin one at the moment. But there you are.
Certainly, I think Brian here puts it well. He says Dublin's experience got them over the line. Offaly will be disappointed how they lost the game. Jer asked the question, was the Dublin GA social media not your old job, Séamus? I did help out for a couple of years with Dublin there. So I would know who's on the social media, but I don't know which one of them exactly made that reel. So that's why I'm throwing the net out quite large and hoping that I catch whoever is actually responsible for that reel, because it was a banger. Liam White here sums up pretty well, and we're going to move on to the next game after that. He said, from our side, the likes of Ushie and Kelly, Brian Dignan and Killian Sampson had huge games. Shame about the end, but nothing to fear about Galway next Saturday. And that brings us on nicely to the Kilkenny-Galway game. Kilkenny eased to victory here, and you put it well. This lacked the championship crunch. Kilkenny looked to be streets ahead of Galway, and a 12-point win.
Yeah, it was just so comfortable for Kilkenny, and it didn't even look like they broke a stride. Like, it looked like, if this game is playing for another 20 minutes to a half an hour, Kilkenny probably just stroll to like a 20-25 point win or something of that nature. Like, it was, it was poor. It was disappointing for Galway. Like, expecting more from them. Like you saw with Clare, although they had, Clare and Galway both similarly had poor enough league campaigns. But you saw Clare stand up in the second half and kind of, silence the doubters a little bit. You were hoping for something similar from Galway, but we didn't get that at all. They were really, really sluggish, really poor. Again, just the same old. It looked like copy and paste from Henry Shefflin last year, to be honest with you. Didn't look like anything really had changed. Again, just floating aimless long ball into two inside forwards that, again, just relying on Conor Whelan. Just let's give him the ball, but to be fair, Kilkenny did their homework. Kilkenny did their homework brilliantly. Like, they stopped any ball that went into them. And I just think Galway are just very predictable, to be honest with you. You just knew what they were going to do. Kept trying to go into Brian Concannon as well, which wasn't working. And Cathal Mannion aside, and maybe John Fleming, who had a good game. I thought Galway were just very, very poor. And I think there's definitely, there's a strong chance Offaly could beat Galway next week. I don't think it's out of the realms of possibility.
I don't think it's out of the realms of possibility at all. Because the thing that would make me nervous from a Galway perspective is when the league started, they had a terrible performance away against Tipperary, and they got decimated. And a lot of people were very nervous that, maybe it wasn't Shefflin who wasn't getting the best out of them. Maybe this is going to continue under Micheál Donoghue. And then when they got a couple of decent results in the league, people were like, you know what? Maybe it's not panic stations just yet. But looking at this result, first result in the championship, on a day where you should have your ducks in order, you should have everything ready to go. How are you so flat out of the gate? What went wrong for Galway in this one?
Yeah, I think a lot went wrong. Like, it was just defensively all over the place. Kilkenny were just they were allowed far too much space, especially in build up as well. And again, for Galway, it was just the same old thing of just trying to hit aimless long balls in, not mixing it up, not trying to get other players involved. And it was just very stale, to be honest with you. And the amount of time they were allowing Owen Cody on the ball at different stages to knock points aimlessly over the bar. I don't even think it was Kilkenny's best performance as well. I still think they've probably another level to go up on. Let's not forget Adrian Mullen, one of their star players, goes off injured as well. They don't have, TJ Reid to come back in the side potentially. So, Kilkenny still have another gear to go up on, and to beat Galway by 12. It nearly reminded me of Kilkenny against a Dublin or against a Laois or against an Antrim. It was just so comfortable for Kilkenny, and I felt like if they had upped the ante a little bit more, they probably could have won this by 20 plus.
Yeah, no, they were very, very comfortable. There's no doubt about it. Liam McOwen says Owen Cody is much better in the half forward line than in the full forward line. Interesting, Aaron. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. Especially with TJ Reid maybe potentially to come back in as well, maybe a Billy Drennan as well. I think there's a strong chance, but I think no matter where you play him, he's going to be effective, whether he's in the full forward line, the half forward line. I think he does damage either way.
He's a supreme hurler, isn't he? He's just absolutely unbelievable. We've more banter flying from Stockroom Tim. He says, can somebody ask the examiner if hurling still needs Cork to win the All-Ireland? And Jer Correx, I think, saying Stockroom, I think it was the Indo. that printed that rubbish. Look, lads, I wouldn't be too harsh on that article. Look, I'm not saying necessarily the Cork need to win the All-Ireland or Hurling needs Cork to win the All-Ireland, but you cannot say that the crowds that Cork bring to the games are not a good thing for hurling, and keeping them interested is definitely
and football as well. We saw that
and
yesterday.
Football. Oh yeah, football too. Like you
Yeah.
need the big counties to be interested in the games. I think I mean, maybe people don't like the fact that Dublin are so into Gaelic football, but when you read up about Kevin Heffernan and you watch the documentaries, you realise how important he was and how Dublin was very nearly a county that just wasn't interested in Gaelic games, and how important that team in the 70s was to getting the county interested and getting them behind the team. So I do think Cork need a bit of success to get the fans as engaged as they are now, and they have a team that they believe in. But obviously Clare proved they're going to have to fight every inch of the way for it. Liam White here says it will be tough, but last night gave me belief from both games that we can actually beat Galway. And like, I do agree with Liam, like Galway do have the illusion because they won the All-Ireland in 2017, and they've, we've grown up with them having the likes of the Joe Cannings and Conor Whelan flying and David Burke, and you're like, oh, can we really beat them? Like they're the teams that, they're an All-Ireland finals type. But what I noticed was last year, once the glass shattered around Galway and we realised that we were going to beat them, it was remarkably easy.
Yeah.
The away from home result. So what I'm saying is I would not be surprised at all if Offaly beat them. Liam compares it to like saying that we need Man United to win the league. Absolutely not. And then Stockman says they went all in on Cork. The disrespect shown to Clare as All-Ireland champions, and even Limerick for their recent success was just jaw-dropping. I didn't actually read the article, so I cannot exactly pass a comment on it. But, yep. Brian says here, it's incredible how Cork came out for hurling today and hardly anyone turned up for Kerry. Did you not disagree with that,
Anne? Hardly anyone turned up for Kerry last night.
Kerry? Is that the...
I don't know if you mean
Kerry from the Cork fans' point of view, Brian, or for the Kerry fans?
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely more Cork fans there, but like you would expect that, to be fair, with it being Páirc Uí Chaoimh. I mean, maybe I suppose, I think there was 14,000 maybe at Páirc Uí Chaoimh. You could argue like it's probably not, it's not even 50% full. But to be fair, like the Cork footballers are not as well followed as the hurlers, and obviously after that game last night, you would hope more Cork, fans will start to come. But even with the fans that were there, they still generate very, very good atmosphere, I thought.
Yeah, no, they certainly did. We have here as well the final game in the Leinster Championship. Antrim 19 points, Lee Chin 16 points, but luckily Lee Chin had 14 other teammates who chipped in with the remaining 2-8. Lee Chin 16 points. Like the fella just produces the goods every single week. He's a sensational hurler. The goals came from Keane, Byrne and Kevin Foley. Rory O'Connor and Conor Hearn also deserve a shout with 3 points each. Jack O'Connor got a red card for Wexford. He still managed to beat Antrim relatively comfortably. Antrim are always a banana skin. Potential slip up. But Wexford evade this one and come out with a comfortable win.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like red cards on both teams. But yeah, like comfortable enough for Wexford. I think after having lost Antrim last year, I think there was always going to be a kind of big response from Wexford. In fairness to Antrim, like they did give it a good go. They had some moments in the game from keeping an eye on the score where it looked like maybe they might be able to do something. But in fairness to Wexford, it was comfortable enough, like an 11-point win in the end. And a big win as well, because I think for Wexford, if Wexford had beat Antrim last year, they would have been in a Leinster final. So, it was these games where they let themselves down last year. And as you said, Lee Chin, phenomenal player, and like what a performance, and big result for Wexford.
Yeah, certainly. We are then going to jump through the remaining games in the hurling, and then we're going to move on to football. So starting the John McDonagh's round one, we had Kerry beating Kildare away from home in St. Connacht's Park in Newbridge, which I think a lot of people wouldn't have anticipated there. The crucial score for Kerry also coming from Pádraig Boyle, who scored 1-7. Carlow put 6:23 past down in Dr. Cullen Park, and then Laois put 3:25 on Westmeath. Looking at the John McDonagh Cup this year, I've tipped that it's going to be one of Carlow and Laois that will win. Do you kind of think along the same lines?
Yeah, but like looking at a performance like that from Carlo, like to score 6 goals and win the game by 21 points against a down team that had a very good league campaign as
Yeah.
well, and probably would have been contenders themselves. Like it looks to the naked eye that Carlo are going to completely walk it, but as you said, Laois are the team in terms of experience and everything else. They've won the Joe McDonagh before. They were in the final last year, obviously competing in Leinster not too long ago as well. And obviously that was a big win for them versus Westmeath as well. So they're certainly going to be the closest. And as you said, yeah, huge win for Kerry as well. To come through it, like I think a setback for Kildare, because Kildare, like last time they were in the Joe McDonagh, they went down. I think it was a few years ago. So bit of a setback there for them.
Yeah, no, certainly. A massive shout has to go as well to Chris Nolan. 3 goals and a point from him. Hat-trick. Matty Kavanagh with 6 points. I truly believe Carlo are going to win the John McDonagh. How good they looked last year, how competitive they looked last year throughout the Liam McCarthy Cup. I just see nobody stopping them in the John McDonagh this year. The Christy Rings round 2, we had Meath beating Tyrone 229 to 215 in Trim. Wicklow shading Donegal in Letterkenny by 111 to 110. And this is a very good win considering what London did to Meath last week. Derry 219, London 118. That's the main result for me, because London had put 5 goals past me the week previous. For Derry to go to away to Royslip and beat them is hugely impressive.
Yeah, absolutely, and huge for, great to see the rise of hurling in Ulster. Like, I mean, we saw Down obviously have a great league campaign. Antrim are obviously flying the flag in Leinster, and as you said, big win for Derry. And I think the better the teams in Ulster can do as well, the better the championship is as well. And if the Ulster Hurling Championship ever came back, I think it's coming closer and closer to coming back potentially. And yeah, great result there for Derry.
Liam White here says Laois Carlo final imminent. To be honest about the John McDonagh, I agree, Liam. Yeah, I think when you look at Derry and Down, especially going higher and higher in their league position and in the cups that they're in, I think they're chasing down Antrim. The Nicky Rackards round 2, of course, we had Mayo trouncing Armagh in the athletic rounds 129 to 11. Mayo are the team that I've picked to win the Nicky Rackard Cup, and they are really, really showing it in the first 2 rounds. Sligo and Roscommon drew in Markovich Park 17 points to 114, and Louth put a beating on Fermanagh in Dundalk 320 to 15 points. So far it's been Louth and it's been Mayo that have looked like the real deal.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Mayo might be the joint holders of this competition since it got reformatted. And I think maybe Donegal might be there as well. But yeah, Mayo have been here before and won this. They'll be the favourites, as you said previously. I think great result for Louth as well. It'd be great to see them. I think they were in the Lowry Mar maybe last year, so it'd be great to see them maybe make a step up as well. But yeah, you'd fancy Mayo to come through.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And then finally, the Lowry Mars Cup round 2. We had, of course, Cavan putting a fairly comprehensive beating. Cavan are the team that I picked to win the Lowry Mars as well, by the way. They're beating Monaghan 220 to 114 in Breffni Park. So I'm feeling pretty good about my prediction so far after the first 2 rounds. Longford beat Warwickshire 114 to 16 points in Pearse Park. And that was a double header with this one. Leitrim 113, Lancashire 112 in Pearse Park as well. Cavan, would you fancy them to win the Lowry Mar?
Absolutely, yeah. Like, my knowledge at this stage of the competition, I won't lie, is very few and far between. But I know Cavan have won this competition very recently, and yeah, you'd imagine they should have enough to do it again. Well,
I mean, the first 2 games, if they're anything to go off, they have looked really, really solid in the first 2 rounds, and I don't think anybody's stopping them in the competition this season. And then to touch on as well, we had the Munster Camogie competitions. Cork 222, Clare 10 points at Cusack Park in Ennis. And then we had Tipperary beating Limerick by 4-13 to 10 points. Both of these games were shown on Clubber as well. I mean, personally, when we talk to people about the different competitions that are happening this season, I say Cork are the slam dunk for an All-Ireland champions that are going to retain their crown. Like, you just watch the Camogie League final. They're so far ahead of Galway, who people think are their closest rivals. Nobody's stopping Cork this year in the Camogie.
Yeah.
Hurling, they might, but Camogie, no way.
Yeah. I think with the Camogie, it is fair to say that it would definitely will be a runaway train. Yeah, like, I didn't see any of the games, but it's not surprising kind of seeing the score lines there. Cork do feel significantly ahead of the chasing pack. Like they won every game at a canter really up until the final last year. So yeah, like you hope someone else can kind of step up, whether it be a Tipperary, whether it be you know, as we were saying in Galway, Dublin had a great year last year. Maybe Kilkenny can get back to the kind of chasing pack as well. But yeah, Cork are looking streets ahead of the rest.
Yeah, they certainly are. I think Tipperary maybe would be my kind of dark horses. Karen Kennedy with 2-1, Grace O'Brien with 9 points in their win, but nobody's stopping Cork, man. Now, switching over to football, the floor is yours, Aaron. How good was this game? Kerry 321, Cork 125 after extra time at Porky Queeve. Just sensational stuff.
Yeah, it was incredible. Absolutely incredible. Like, and it's mad to think that this was the game of the weekend, you know, probably across all codes. Maybe you could argue Clare, Cork, or Limerick, Tip, and Hurling, but in football, I don't think there's any doubts about this. And it wasn't even probably earmarked as one of the games of the weekend. I think we all thought, you know, Kerry were going to stroll to victory, maybe in a similar way to Galway beat Roscommon. But no, that was not the case at all. I mean, this game had absolutely everything from red cards, yeah, drama, tremendous goals, some brilliant 2-pointers as well. And like, fair play to Cork, because they just would not lie down. They were like a cockroach. Like every time you tried to stand on them, they just wouldn't go away. You know, they just kept on coming back. Kerry would be 7-8 points up as they were in the early part of first half. And Cork came rallying back. Brian O'Driscoll with some phenomenal 2-pointers to make the game a contest. And yeah, like even, you know, towards the end of the game then as well, like Kerry obviously get a goal with Sean O'Shea, and you're thinking, right, that's it. Done and dusted. Yeah. Paddy Clifford then gets sent off, and you're thinking, you know, it gives a bit of a boost to the Cork fans. But even at that, like 6 minutes to go, you know, I would still expect the Kerry team, who have a 7-point lead, to see the game out. But again, you know, the new rules are brilliant, and we saw Monaghan sort of get themselves back into the game a little bit against Donegal through 2-pointers. And this was no different here. You know, from Cathal O'Mahony to Owen McSweeney, Cork were outstanding. They get a goal as well from Chris Oak-Jones, and like it was 100%, it was there for them. But it just felt like every time the game was actually there to be won, Cork just couldn't go and do it. They just couldn't seal it. Like the mad thing was, like, even when the hooter sounded, Cork actually had the ball, but then they dropped it, and then it ended up touching it on the ground, and then Kerry obviously get the chance at the start of extra time as well. They've 3 chances before they get a man sent off. Like they absolutely had the opportunities there. And then even as well, like they go like one thing you'd have to commend Kerry though is that like when Kerry needed to score, they did, and he always felt like Kerry were just going to find a way to win. Whereas with Cork, it was like you felt like the pressure and maybe the moment got to them a little bit, even with some of the chances as well. And like that goal from Joe O'Connor as well. I mean, that was just. I mean, like it just came out of nowhere as well. Like it was like, oh, Joe O'Connor has the ball, and it's like, what the hell? And you could see even in commentary from Brid Stack and Mark O'Shea, like they couldn't believe it. Like it was just like the balls to even go for that as well, because like imagine like if he puts that wide, do you know what I mean? Like I mean, then all of a sudden Cork have the ball back and they probably win. So yeah, incredible game.
Yeah, no, it was the crunch moments, and he came up with the biggest clutch moment of the weekend, I think it's fair to say, from Joe O'Connor. Absolutely sensational finish. A lot of comments coming in. Our good friend Matthew, the Gaelic Statsman here, he said, what a game, but absolutely gut-wrenching when Rory Dean scored that point. Thought it was the night. Kerry deserve a lot of credit. 100% shot accuracy in extra time. I mean, if you want to take a positive from a Kerry point of view, keeping your nerve when the game is in the melting pot, that's an unbelievable stat.
Yeah, that's incredible, to be fair. And yeah, like it was just one of them that like when Kerry needed to deliver, they did. And it felt like, you know, when Cork went behind, they're a little bit towards the end. I know they kept like bouncing back, but it felt like Cork needed maybe 4 or 5 chances to go in front or to get the lead, whereas Kerry just needed one. Do you know what I mean? Like, and even as well, like when like after the Cork red card, which I'm sure we'll get onto from Sean Brady, like David Clifford just scores a 2-pointer out of absolutely nowhere. Like he's off balance as he's hitting it. Like, I mean, it was just extraordinary. And yeah, like it's a weird one because Kerry definitely weren't at their best, and they had some moments in the game I think that they can improve on. Defensively, there's definitely some worries there. But at the same time, I think this game will be good for Kerry, because Kerry don't normally get this in Munster, and the fact they came through it as well and showed the bottle. Do you know what I mean? Like, and Kerry as well, you'd probably say, fresh off of a holiday and everything else, there's probably similarities to when Dublin played Wicklow. And look, they came through it, and that's the most important thing. They will get better, they will improve. And look, one thing is worth mentioning as well is that, you know, they lost Paddy Clifford as well, who's one of their most influential players. He was rightly sent off, in my opinion, but that did have a big effect on them as well. So, you know, as much as Kerry will take a bit of criticism, I think there is actually positives for them to take as well.
Oh, there absolutely is. I mean, I've seen a lot of people kind of throwing at that Kerry aren't as good as we think they are, or yada yada. I'm like, no, I think more that Cork are just better than people give them credit for. Cork are more talented than people give them credit for. I just think they can be very inconsistent in the league. But I think when it comes to championship, Cork have been pretty solid over the last few seasons. Matthew emphasised it here. He says, we aren't a bad team, and I think we proved that. Hopefully that is respect earned, privileged to be in the media area for this thriller. Stocker and Tim must have said, I watched it in the pub and the whole place was enthralled. Long time since that's been the case for a football game. Look, this game was absolutely sensational. As Brian says here, Cork Kerry already game of the year. Questions over the two cards. Aaron, let's talk about it. The two red cards. Obviously, Sean Brady sent off for Cork. Paddy Clifford sent off for Kerry. A lot of people having a lot of debates about not just one, but both of the cards. What's your personal take on it?
I thought the Paddy Clifford one definitely was one. Like, he's like, it's the force that he goes in. I know some people are saying, oh, it was only an arm around the head or something like that, but it's the force that he goes in, like the speed at which the player was running at. So no, I thought that was a definite red card. In my opinion, the second one, was crazy. And to be fair, like the ref as well, like at first, you know, he doesn't want to give a red card, but the linesman kind of instructs him to do it. It's a yellow card. It's a shoulder. It's a heavy shoulder. It's not a great challenge, but it's not a red card. 100% is a yellow. And Cork, like, that was just a huge moment, because Cork had the advantage for the entirety of extra time had that not have happened. And you know, look, it was only a 1-point game in the end, 2-point game in the end. Had that red card not have happened, you know, who knows? You know, that probably gives Kerry a bit of confidence as well. So, I think Cork can definitely feel quite aggrieved. Yeah,
no, I do agree. I think that the Cork one was probably more harsh than the Kerry one anyway. I'll say that. And Cork, I think, missed big chances, as you were saying, especially in extra time when they had it at the hooter and then dropped the ball and touched on the ground. Like, there's moments where you were like, oh my God. It was like, do you know what it was like? It was like watching... Do you remember when in the UFC when Nate Diaz tagged Leon Edwards and he was hitting him about 100 times, but he wasn't getting a knockout blow? And I'm like, Cork were landing so many important scores, but when Joe O'Connor scored that goal, I was like, oh mate, I don't think Cork are coming back from that. Like, Cork didn't get a score that shook Kerry to their very core, apart from obviously when they came back with the 2-pointers and the goal from Chris Oak-Jones. I think when Rory Dean scored the point, as Matthew said, I did think for a second it's 2020 all over again. Cork are going to do it. Cork are going to beat Kerry. But Kerry's resolve, you can't deny it. You cannot deny it after watching that. We have a good few comments in about it here. Stockroom says, were Cork trying to play out the clock when they were 1 down in normal time? Looked like they were trying to keep the ball in and around the 2-point arc until they took it on right at the buzzer. I think they were trying to make sure that Kerry had no chance if they landed a 2-pointer, to be honest, Tim. And then Brian says this will definitely be the benefit to Kerry given the competitiveness and how close Cork pushed them. You would definitely know Kerry will be better next time. I felt Cork needed a few opportunities to score and Kerry's scores came easier. Look, this was a sensational game and I really enjoyed the coverage around it. Just box office Saturday night entertainment. Thank you to all involved. The other semi-final then, Kerry go in to play against Clare in the Munster final. Clare beat Tipperary by 218 to 115. Owen Cleary with 4 points. Mark McInerney with 2-4. Aaron Griffin with 2 points. Keelan Sexton with 2 points. Emma McMahon with 5. This was a game that Clare were tipped to win strongly as favourites. But Tip were always going to be tricky for Clare. Like players like Stephen O'Brien in there, who is a supremely gifted footballer. But for Clare, job done. And they're into the Munster final.
Yeah, absolutely. And from keeping an eye on the score and everything else, it seemed relatively comfortable from a Clare perspective. Maybe with it, like in the end, it only being a 6-point win. For Tipperary, who were mid-table in Division 4, playing a team competing for promotion in Division 3, that will give them a bit of confidence going into the Tailteann. But yeah, very commanding result for Clare. I think the bad news for Clare though will be that Kerry in the Munster final, but I think Kerry have had a big test now in Munster, so I think they won't. Although the Munster final was a lot closer last year than people had anticipated, I do have a funny feeling Kerry might win this one at a bit more of a canter, just given the nature of how the Cork game went.
Yeah, no, I think they've got their shock. I don't think that they're going to be quite as lackadaisical as they were when Clare really stung them last year and really put them through their paces. I think Cork have well and truly shook them awake, and they're going to be ready for that Munster final. Going from the south up to the north, the Ulster Senior Football Championship quarter-final, which took place today on GA+. Monaghan 21 points, Donegal 23 points in Clonus. It went down to the wire, kind of like we all presumed that it would, but Donegal have won, and their goal of retaining the Anglo-Celt Cup and the Ulster Championship remains. What did you make of this one?
Yeah, it was an interesting game. Like Donegal were very, very comfortable. They never really looked like losing the game. Like in typical Donegal fashion, they always had their opponent at arm's length, maybe in the same way when they played Dublin in the league and even Derry. It's mad that it ended up being this close. And Desi Ward scores a 2-pointer towards the end. And Monaghan scores some brilliant 2-pointers in this game. In fairness, Micheál Bannigan got a few, Jack McCarron as well. And like Monaghan made a bit more of a game of it, but it always just felt like every time Monaghan would land the blow, whether it be a 2-pointer, Donegal would then go down the other end with Micheál Langan or Michael Murphy, and Kieran Thompson, who was outstanding as well. It must be said, 5 points from midfield. And yeah, then obviously the scenario at the end of the game as well with the hooter. I'd be curious
let's
to
talk about that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of controversy around it. In the post-match analysis, it was kind of figured that the referee actually had it right in the call that he made, but Monaghan were still really, really upset about it, felt they should have had one more play at the end of the game. Gabriel Bannigan, the Monaghan manager, was furious about it.
Yeah.
Do they have a right? Yeah. Do they have a right to be aggrieved here?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I was thinking maybe because the ball had already gone out of play and then the hooter sounded, technically the ball is out of play already, so that's why the referee blew it up. So it's probably like a technicality, and maybe that's something that needs to be fine-tuned, where even if the ball goes out of play and the hooter sounds, you still allow one more play if there is one more play to be had. That way? Because like if you put it this way, like imagine if so let's say Donegal had the ball there, they would have just kicked the ball back in to kick it back out. So, do you know what I mean? Like that's probably why the hooter was sounded a little bit. But obviously Monaghan were the team with the ball, and there was some kind of confusion around it as well. But yeah, like Micheál Bannigan running on the pitch, like at first I thought he was like, this is going to be absolute chaos. But to be fair, maybe by the time he got to the referee, he had a change of heart, and there was no chaos.
He's getting flashes of do you remember that video that went around of like the ref getting knocked out a few years ago in like a club championship game? I was like, please God, no. Not again.
Yeah, and I meant Gabriel Bannigan there, by the way, actually, not Micheál Bannigan. I'm mixing up the Bannigans there. But yeah, you did have shades of when he was running on the pitch. It kind of nearly reminded me a bit of Louth and Meath in 2010. But yeah, no, like to be fair to him, he kept his composure. Maybe the referee just told him what happened, and then he was like, all right, fair enough. But yeah, like in the end, I think, look, the fair team won the game. Donegal were better. And yeah, for Donegal, they've made light enough work, I would say, of Monaghan and Derry, which are two Division 1 teams, albeit Derry got relegated, Monaghan got promoted. But yeah, I think for Derry or for Donegal, you'd expect them to be down now in the semi-finals. And a lot of very good performers, especially when you're able to bring Oisín Gallen off the bench as well. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like Michael Murphy scoring a 2-pointer right at the start of the game as well. Didn't look out of place at all. Looked like he'd been playing championship football the last couple of years when obviously he hadn't been. So, it was some big performers there from Donegal.
Yeah, certainly. And I think, look, It went down to the wire. I think we all kind of figured that it would initially. But if you're looking at the full game, Donegal probably did deserve to win. I think over the full 70 minutes, they probably were the better side. I don't think Jim will be delighted with how they allowed Monaghan to just eat into the lead super quick, and all of a sudden it was right, down to the wire. And that last carnage situation, which should there have been a final play, happened because Donegal had allowed Monaghan to come back into the game. But that's also what the new rules have done. You land 2 kicks from outside the arc, all of a sudden you've taken 4 points off the lead, and for most leads that will bring you back into the game. So it's bred new life into the game from that point of view, because most of the games across the weekend, you can never write them off until the final whistle. But for Donegal, they're motoring along nicely. I think Jim will be delighted with where they're at. They're one of the front runners for the All-Ireland, man. I really believe that. I believed it from the start. Yeah. Jim's a mastermind. And I think a lot of people are forgetting. A lot of people will just look at that Dublin game in 2011 and look at the 2011 season with Donegal and be like, oh, he's a defensive coach. He's not a defensive coach. He is a winner, and he figures out which way is his best way to win, and he plays to win. And for Donegal, since his second term, he's been anything but defensive with this Donegal team since he's come back to the helm. He's figured out that they're probably stronger going forward than they are at the back, whereas in the first time, they're probably stronger at the back than they were going forward. So he's built the team out to win once again, and they're into an Ulster semi-final, and so are Down. Down went away to Brewster Park and beat Fermanagh on a scoreline of 219 to 23 points. And for Down, given that they were just relegated, getting a win here is absolutely crucial. And against the Fermanagh side, it was always going to be tricky. The key scores for Down in this one, of course, Danny McGill with 2 points, Pat Haven with 4, Oran Murdoch, Eugene Brannigan with 2. The goals both came from midfield, Daniel Guinness and Ryan McAvoy. 2-5 from midfield, not half bad from Down's midfield partnership. And they've got over the line in what could have been and what was a very tricky away day.
Yeah, it was. And they scored 2 goals in injury time as well. I think they scored 2-3 or 2-4 or something like that towards the end of the game. I did see some controversy around one of the goals as well. Potentially it was a throw ball, maybe in the build-up or something of that nature. But obviously we'll catch the highlights on Sunday game. I didn't get to see any of it live. But yeah, big result for Down, because especially when you think like they're going into the group stages of the All-Ireland because they won the Tailteann Cup. So if they had gone into the group stages on the back of this defeat, it could have been quite grim for Down, to be honest with you. They could have been on the back of some hidings potentially. So they get this game, they get this win. And look, Donegal is a free hit. I don't think anyone expects them to come anywhere near Donegal. But look, I remember thinking similar when Down played Armagh last year, and that turned out to be closer. Yeah. So be interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah, I wouldn't write them off bloodying up Donegal's nose a bit. And I don't think Jim McGuinness will let Donegal think that they're over the line at all. Brian says Donegal are playing to their strengths. Their forward line is very strong. Equally, their defence is impressive. They're very, very serious outfit. Definitely favourites for Sam Maguire. Brian thinks that Donegal are going to do it. Negative times with a negative comment. Does what it says on the tin. He says, thought the new rules were to revitalise the football. It's like watching paint dry still. I wouldn't agree, to be honest. Look, we had some games that weren't the best this weekend, but if you look at the Kerry Cork game, that was a belter. And they're still only in the first year being implemented. So imagine now another year where we get to tune them, tweak them, take the mistakes out, etc., etc. Yeah. And Brian here says, how unlucky were Fermanagh. They certainly were unlucky, especially the 2 late goals from Down. Just sucker punches, knockout blows, and Fermanagh are out of the Ulster Championship. Now moving over to the West, we had 2 fairly one-sided semi-finals here. Galway 124, Roscommon 18 points. Look, over the last 7-8 years, Roscommon Galway has always been a game that's gone right down to the wire. This one felt so different to previous Roscommon Galway games because it felt like Galway were overwhelming favourites, and it just never looked like Roscommon were going to win. Like, I watched it start to finish, and I never believed that Roscommon were going to win this.
No. Like, I think if you're a Roscommon fan, you'd be really disappointed with this game because Galway, like, towards the end of the league, Galway took a fair pacing versus Kerry. They didn't look overly brilliant versus New York. Now, look, I think Galway will win the All-Ireland, but I don't think they're at the level just yet now. Do you know what I mean? Damien Comer, came off the bench. He also as well had no Shane Walsh. So Galway were missing key players there. For Roscommon, I know they ended the league quite badly, but they have the players with the 2-pointers to hurt Galway, but they just didn't. There was a reluctancy to shoot. It looked like they fell back into old habits of last year, where they were hanging on to the ball. They were not really doing anything with the ball, and it was very, very comfortable for Galway. And put it this way, this game was actually more one-sided than Mayo Leitrim, and who would have expected that at the weekend? But it was so easy for Galway. And fair play. Look, Robert Finnerty was outstanding. Paul Conroy very good, and Killy McDade had a tremendous game as well. To be fair,
they certainly have established dominance there in Connacht, though, haven't they? I mean, like they really are now. And going into that Connacht final against Mayo, Mayo have got to the Connacht final, not that impressively. They've beaten Sligo narrowly, and then beaten Leitrim a lot more narrowly than people would have thought that they would. And still, Mayo have shown absolutely no interest in kicking 2-pointers, which, if you look at the Kerry Cork game, if Kerry hadn't had the ability to land the 2-pointers, Cork would have beat them. So I stand by it. It's going to come back to bite Mayo down the line. And I actually think the Galway Connacht final will be one of the first examples of this coming back to bite Mayo.
100%, yeah. Like it was a very flat performance against Leitrim. We'll
put that up now. Yeah, Leitrim 13 points, Mayo 20.
Yeah, and look, first of all, huge credit to Leitrim. They were absolutely outstanding. Barry McNulty was brilliant. Tom Pryor was very, very good as well. But when you factor in the year that Leitrim have had, not even playing a game, injuries, a lot of the lads playing under 20s during the week as well. Everyone expected Mayo to win this by 20 plus, 25 plus, but it felt like, aside from Ryan O'Donoghue, it felt like Mayo just couldn't score. And it was just the same old, trying to run the ball, very, very predictable. To be fair to Stephen Poacher and Leitrim, they did their homework because they let Mayo have the ball, and they said, well, you're not going to kick 2-pointers because you haven't done all year. And Mayo said, yeah, you're right, and didn't do that. It was bizarre, to be honest with you. Look, Mayo came through it in the end, but, it's kind of mad, like an aggregate scoreline of 10 points to beat both Mayo and Sligo. You would have expected it to have been way more if you added up both of the winning margins together. So, look, Mayo had a good league in the end, so you don't want to count them off. Is there an element of saving themselves because they have burnt themselves out in championships before? But a huge amount of improvement is needed going into the Galway game. And it does look like, aside from Ryan O'Donoghue, maybe Matthew Rowan, they don't have a lot of attacking options. And I think Galway, as it looks right now, should win that final fairly comfortably.
Yeah, no, I would be backing Galway in that final. I just think they've been fairly far ahead of Mayo and Roscommon over the last couple of years. And even I'll go back to 2022 when Roscommon beat Galway in the league final, for Division 2, and also beat them in the Division 2 regular season. It really felt like Roscommon were Galway's equal. That year, Galway got to an All-Ireland final, broke through the glass ceiling in terms of being considered genuine front-runner contenders for the All-Ireland, and they haven't looked back. And the Roscommon are more or less at the same station that they were back in 2022. You could argue they've taken a step back. They've an unbelievable squad. Ben O'Carroll, Enda Smith, who was actually taken off. Sean Mulcairn did an unbelievable job on him. For Mayo, on that side, I stand by it. The lack of a 2-point kicker is going to really, really cost them in a big game, because you look at how important for Kerry when they were really against it against Cork. You look how important the 2-pointer that David Clifford landed was. You look at how vital those 2-pointers were that Kerry got. Mayo don't have them coming. And when they need one, what they're going to end up having to do is they're going to have to throw it to someone like a Jordan Flynn or like a Matthew Ruan or like a Ryan O'Donoghue, who, yes, has the capability to kick it, but hasn't actually done it in an inter-county match competitively where it matters. Maybe behind closed doors, that's all good. Can you do it in a championship match with a crowd there? You're going to be hoping for somebody to pull a rabbit out of a hat. And I don't think Mayo are playing the odds to their favour this year. And I think McStay I think he missed the trick there in the Leitrim game, to be fair, completely honest. But massive shout to Barry McNulty. 8 points, outstanding at midfield. Absolutely outstanding. And the final game then in the weekend recap, it was the only LGFA game from the weekend. It was in the Leinster Championship. It took place at Porktalton. Dublin went away to Meath, the biggest rivals in the province, and beat them 2-10 to 1-6. Hannah Tyrrell with 1-3. Sophie McIntyre with the other goal. Niamh Heatherton with 2 points. Chloe Darby with 3 at centre forward. Look, the reality is Dublin have moved clear of Meath in terms of this rivalry. The games don't tend to be that close anymore. You think about the Leinster final last year between the two teams at Croke Park, it was a whitewash. Dublin looked to be in the driving seat to win Leinster and the LGFA again this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm from keeping an eye on it, like, it looks fairly comfortable from a Dublin perspective. Fairly comfortable win. And as you said, it's a shame really, because Meath have obviously made the rise up, and I probably haven't seen enough of the Meath ladies to know where it's all gone wrong. I know obviously there has been players who've gone to Australia and everything else, but changes in management and everything else. But yeah, very comfortable from a Dublin perspective, and yeah, you would say not at all surprising really.
Yeah, well, I'm reminding myself now of who they're missing. So out of their 1-6, Emma Duggan scored 1-5 and Vicky Wallace scored a point. So like it's extremely reliable on those two. We're the backbone of their All-Ireland win. But like Niamh O'Sullivan has retired. She was crucial to their All-Ireland win. Orla Lally wasn't there. She's actually playing in Australia. Emma Troy, Shauna Ennis both didn't play in this game. Like Moira O'Shaughnessy didn't play. Avian Leahy didn't play. They were big players for Meath, and you can't lose the amount of players that Meath lost and not take a step back. Whereas Dublin, even when they have lost players to Australia, players like Grace Cause, Ailish O'Dowd, they were playing in this game. Jennifer Dunn wasn't starting anyway. I just double check that she didn't come on. Yeah, she didn't come on in this game. But point is that they've had her. Even when she's moved to Australia, they've had her for the next season. Meath haven't got their full squad back. They've got Vicky back, but they need the rest of the team back. And in my opinion, nobody can stop Dublin in the LGFA Leinster Championship. So guys, that is the episode finished, just under an hour and 15 minutes. It's been a really enjoyable one, Aaron. Thank you for jumping on for another show. Massive shout out to Brian O'Riordan, to Negative Times, to Liam White, to Stockroom Tim, to Garrod Odo Grecon, to Gaelic Statsman, our good friend Matthew Hurley, to Liam Mac 01. First time on the show, Liam Mac. Same with Negative Times. Please come back, lads. Love to have you on again. And to Jack Nulty as well up the top. I didn't actually get to put Jack Nulty's comments in, so here it is. He said Kerry did enough, could have gone Cork, and some Cork can blame whoever, but simply missed a lot in extra time with possession compared to Kerry. Donegal just got over the line against Monaghan. There was some controversial ending to that game. Cheers, Brian. Cheers, Jack. Cheers, Garrod. Cheers, Statsman. Cheers, everybody who left a comment in. Thank you to Aaron for jumping on for another show. We'll be back here next Sunday at 8 p.m. for another weekend review show. So do tune in for that. Until then, guys, enjoy the week. Enjoy the banker. Go get drunk tonight. We'll see y'all next week.